sent out the oh no, I'm being recorded.
Now you gotta watch what you say, Denny.
Yeah, that's for sure. So we're going to review the agenda that Matt sent out to us so that we're ready to go with the CEO call on August 17th. Would someone be able to pull that agenda up on the screen for me?
Here, let me see if I can do that. Oh, it says the host disabled participant screen sharing.
All right, so Karen, would that be you be able to do that?
There you go, Bruce. I've got it pulled up, Bruce, if you're having problems.
Bruce, is it all right if Karen pulls that up? I think you're muted.
Because it, when I click on share screen, it says the host disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay.
I just
Karen,
made
can you
sure-
pull it up?
Yeah.
Here it is. Here it is. Okay, so we're all excited about the fact that we'll have the opportunity as a committee to address the nationwide CEOs on August 17th. I believe that call is at 3:00 p.m. call Eastern Standard Time. And let's get into exactly what everyone's role is going to be on that particular call. So first and foremost, Matt will open it up. He'll have 5 minutes to discuss the Unified Leadership Committee, the overview, our purpose, and show current members. Then the United States Athlete Leadership Council, he'll discuss that overview, purpose. Bruce, the next line is something that he highlighted. Will you be able to provide the latest list of current members?
Yes, I sent that to Matt after our last meeting, but yes, I can go over our current list on the CEO call. Yes.
Great. So if Matt already has it, or you can work that out between you and Matt, that'd be great. And then we want to show the connection between the two groups. So Mary Ellen, am I correct in assuming you will not be on the call on the 17th because of vacation?
That's correct. I'm off that day.
All right. So Bruce, and can we get another athlete leader to volunteer to jump in there for Mary Ellen at that particular point?
Yes, I would say maybe Raymond Irvin.
Okay. Bruce, can you reach out to Raymond? Is he on our call today?
I have another call with him today, in fact.
Okay, so would you please ask him to be on that call and again, brief him as to his role as showing the connection between the USLC, Unified Leadership Committee, and the US Athlete Leadership Council.
Yeah, and he's also the vice chair of our committee. Of
Great.
the ALC.
All right, so I'm assuming that you are the chair, Bruce?
Correct.
Okay, great. So it'll be great to have both Raymond and yourself on that call to discuss the connection between the two groups. Number two, key topic updates. And again, this goes to you, Bruce. This is all yours. Define unified leadership and explain difference complementarily between unified leadership and athlete leadership. Explain connection between DEI and athlete leadership. Are you good with that, Bruce? Have you planned anything to date as far as that goes?
Yeah, I can cover that topic.
And then you're going to introduce and provide overview of the full workshop, give
Yep.
basic details, purpose, desired outcomes, present recommendations to USLC, date, delegate description, ask CEOs during the call, do they know who their delegate will be?
Yeah.
That's for October 27th. Am I correct, Bruce?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So we're going to be asking you CEOs or reminding them about the workshop on the 27th and asking them to designate a delegate as soon as possible to represent their state on that call. Brandon, can you just jump in for a minute? Because I know you were talking about the workshop and the role of athletes, mentors, and staff. Could you jump in on that?
Yeah, so we had a side email conversation, a quick one yesterday. Thanks everybody for getting back to me so quickly. That yes, mentors, if athlete leaders feel like they need a mentor to assist them, then yes, they are more than welcome to join. We highly encourage them to. We just ask that they stay on mute. And the same thing with staff. The staff are welcome to join the workshop as well. But again, same thing, we just ask that they stay on mute.
Okay. Are there any other updates under agenda item number 2 that we need to add to that? It looks like we have 10 minutes, which is a good block of time. Do we want to add anything else?
Just one more thing on the workshop. The regional members of the USALC will be conducting meetings with the staff members and maybe the CEOs in their region sometime in the first couple of weeks of September to talk about the workshop and again just to remind the CEOs and the athlete leadership staff about the workshop and just encouraging them to submit names of athletes that will be attending.
Okay, and thank you, Karen, for adding that. Did you see that, Bruce? Regional reps on ALC will be doing a staff training to prepare for fall workshop. Are you good with that?
Yeah.
Thank you, Karen.
So really quickly, let me jump in. Bruce, so regional reps are doing a call with staff and a separate call also with the athlete participants, or the athlete participants and the staff on the same call?
I would say the same call.
Okay, so we just need, okay. So
Yeah.
it's athlete, regional reps. Yeah, thanks, Karen. Athletes will be joining as well, yeah. From each state, each program, yeah. So it's going to be not just for staff, but it's going to be for the athletes who are going to attend the workshop. So anybody who is attending the workshop essentially is as a part of this prep call. I just wanted to clarify that because I wasn't sure. I know we talked about doing one for athletes. So just wanted to make sure.
And also, I know we've talked about doing a Zoom training as well. What we decided on a separate call a couple weeks ago is Jeff Moeller from Special Olympics Indiana has like a video of a Zoom training that they've done. So they're just gonna send that out to everyone, so we don't have to do a separate Zoom etiquette training.
Okay. So let me ask this question as a CEO, because this question may come up on our call. Is this a nationwide staff training, Bruce?
Each regional representative will be having the call with athletes and staff in their region.
In their region. Okay, that makes sense.
Call.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Thank you. Anything else from our committee regarding key topic updates? Anything else that you think should be on there? Especially Jeff, Jess, anything from a CEO perspective you think that might need to be in there? Okay,
I can't think of anything.
thanks, Jeff. Okay, thanks, guys.
All right,
Um,
Denny, I had a lot of printer thing going on back here, so I didn't want to come off of mute. I'm good, thank you.
Okay, great. You know, and anybody, please, on this call, please jump in. I want to make sure that we're very, very well prepared for this opportunity for the 17th. So jump in as you see fit. Okay, we've gone through number 1 and number 2. So number 1 is basically, you know, Matt Aaron laying the groundwork for the work that we do. And then number 2, the key topic updates will be Bruce. So that'll be great. And thank you, Bruce, for all your work in making this I think it's going to be a great call on the 17th. Number 3, we're going to encourage and ask all participants to join a breakout group. And the 3 topics that we have selected, number 1 is hiring athletes for staff positions. Number 2, how can ALCs help inform decision-making before a decision is made, rather than just offering feedback after it's implemented? And number 3, identifying meaningful athlete leadership roles in each state. So those are the 3 that we have earmarked as probably the 3 most important topics. And then underneath the to-do list at the bottom, we're going to, and Brandon, can I ask you to do this? Number 1, contact Dave, Breen, or Bailey to confirm the setup for the breakout groups. And then will we assign CEOs and other call participants to a specific group selected in advance, or will call participants be assigned to groups randomly? So the whole concept of the breakout, Brandon, could you handle that with Bailey?
Yeah, I'll figure that out.
And then figure out for us, you know, how we're going to assign. I mean, for me in Rhode Island, you know, we have an athlete who's a staff member already. So I don't think I would like to, I don't want to sit in on hiring athletes for staff positions. I would do number 2 and number 3 would be more appropriate for me. I just don't know how, you know, technical we want to be in advance of, advance of the call. You know, I'm
So
not
it's the
sure there's
idea
going to be a
that-
way.
so-
Go ahead.
Sorry, Denny, to jump on you there. Is the idea that people will go into these groups, into these breakout rooms and only talk about one topic, or are they going to talk about all 3?
I would think they're going to talk about one topic.
Okay, got it. That's all I needed.
Okay.
Well, they're-
I was wondering, I'm sorry, Denny.
ahead,
Is
Jess.
there a way from a Zoom and this is beyond what I've done on Zoom. Is there a way, like if we can pop up the 3 different breakout rooms to join and CEOs can just self-select like which one they want to go into? I mean, I can't imagine one would be, you know, overwhelmingly more than another. I would hate to get like 2 people in a room, but I also know that maybe that Denny would, if there's a way you can, you know, there's going to pop 3 up on the screen, you choose which one you want. I don't know if anybody knows if that's possible, but it is, Karen.
All right, Brandon, it's in your court. Karen, whoever can.
And
Get us
Jess,
through
I
that.
can also share with you that as a host of a Zoom meeting, you can pop in and out of whichever breakout groups you want at any time. I do that all the time with our training sessions.
But you can allow your participants to select which room. We would just have to identify what room A was, what room B and C were, so they can select.
Okay,
Cool.
I think having that ability is going to be key, or else we're going to waste a lot of time trying to assign people to rooms.
okay, very good.
I'm glad we can do that, because I think it'll make it a lot easier.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I don't, like I said, I think there are some CEOs who would rather, if it's random, then you may get stuck in an area where, like I said, I don't need a discussion on hiring an athlete. So Brandon, Karen, you said we can do that.
Yes.
Okay, great. Mary
And
Ellen.
I'm sorry, Denny. I just want to, do you guys think 20 minutes is too long? Or do you think that's not, that's enough? I mean, I assume that this team and our athlete leaders will be in a unified space, be leading these breakouts, but is 20 minutes too long or not?
I guess
wanna
that was
cut-
my question, is who's leading the discussion in these groups? Who's assigned to each one of these groups? And are they prepared to answer, very pointed questions, to kind of lead that discussion? Otherwise, I feel like we're gonna get into the groups and everybody's gonna go just
And that
stare at
appears
each
to-
other until some of these
That
steps.
appears to be number 2 on the to-do list. Who will facilitate
Oh,
each
there
of
you
the
go.
3 breakout sessions? So they're looking for a CEO and an athlete to facilitate each breakout, and one additional member from the USULC to take notes. So let's finish up on number 1, and then we'll jump to number 2 on the to-do list. Okay, Jess, it's a good point. Do you think we should reduce it down to 15 minutes?
So here's what I'm thinking, and this is obviously just for open discussion. David, and I know this is, Denny, I don't want to jump too far ahead either, but there was some questions that David Wu sent over to us. And a lot of this has to do with, not a lot, but there's a considerable amount of questions in here around SONA's alignment. And I'm just wondering if and Amy, I might recommend that maybe you or your team could possibly take kind of the anchor of this section. So if we would break out in 15 minutes, come back together, and we'll have to do the time because 5, 10, 15, 20. I know this isn't the only thing on the agenda for the CEO call. So I'm just wondering if there would be a time, Amy, or might be beneficial, because some of these questions that David asked were good. So I wonder if there's a way that we could build in some time at the end just to have maybe a SONA update on alignment with athlete leadership and programs from a SONA perspective. Just a thought. But I also, on another note, am wondering if we're breaking these out and have facilitators leading these breakouts, are there subject matter experts that already exist in the field or CEOs that are exceptional in hiring athletes that we could have as a plant in there to talk about some of the great things that they do? Is there another program that would have, that does a really good job at involving their ALC and decision-making that could kind of talk about best practices? I think maybe that might be, so I have two things I'm talking about here, but I think that might be helpful too, because I don't want to get in, I don't know, Jordan, if that was you that mentioned it, but getting into these topics and then all of a sudden we have crickets because nobody gets that ball rolling. It'd be nice to have a subject matter expert kind of planted in those breakouts. Just a thought.
Jessica, I'll jump in. I don't know what happened, but this document that's on the screen, I didn't get, and I've never seen David's questions, so a little hard for me to respond to your question about alignment, but happy to, if someone can get that to me, look at it, and so I'm better informed to respond. But so Jessica, are you talking about SONA possibly saying something about alignment on the CEO call or the workshop? But we're talking about the CEO call,
Yes.
correct?
Correct,
Okay.
the CEO call, Amy. So I was thinking after the breakouts, maybe we could come back. And if you guys, again, this is totally open for discussion, but if it's something, Amy, I'll forward it to you. It was in an email that Matt sent out to the CEOs. And I think Mary Ellen, Karen's copied or on that as well. Regarding some of the questions that David sent out. So I'll forward that to you, Amy, so you've got it. But there's some questions in here around how do other state programs integrate alignment with local advocacy efforts? Again, that's probably more for another conversation. But what intentions does SONA have to align and integrate further with national advocacy efforts? What are the intentions of SONA and SOI to instill unified leadership across departments through programmatic resources? So again, I don't want to, I mean, if it's too much for this call, that's fine. I get that too, but Amy, I'll send it over to you so you can take a look real quick.
Okay, great. Thank you. That would be helpful before we could respond
Yeah.
to you. But I would say, just going back to the question, I go back to one and these two topics being so married. If they're appropriately facilitated, 20 minutes may not be enough, to be honest, because Zoom, remember Zoom, everything takes longer on Zoom than if we were sitting around some 8 tops or 10 tops. So I don't know that 20's in any way a risk of being too much time if you have a good facilitator. Especially because if you're going to do random assignments, you don't know how many people you're going to get in a room. You could have 30 in the same room.
And maybe,
I
Amy,
mean,
and
not,
you're
not
right.
random assignments. I'm sorry. I meant to say it the other way around. If you're letting people
Self-selecting.
choose, they're self-selecting. Thank you.
Correct. And that's why I think maybe a subject matter expert might be a good facilitator, or at least be there to help that might be successful in this area. So just a couple of thoughts, you guys. Again, I don't want to complicate things, but I'm just thinking from a CEO perspective, what would be helpful for me.
Just wondering if we have enough time to identify that person, the right person. To
We
lead
might
those
not,
sessions.
Jenny.
Yeah,
we might
I'm
not.
thinking that Matt's probably thinking that one of us on this call today, one of the CEOs would agree to jump in and agree to facilitate one of those 3. And then hopefully one of the athlete leaders decides to jump in and help us as well. So that being said, I don't want to leave this, maybe we'll leave it open-ended and ask Matt to jump in when he gets back from vacation to talk about who's going to lead those 3 topics. It's a very, very important decision because as you can tell, those 3 topics are extremely meaningful. And I think we probably have the athlete leaders in place to lead those discussions, but do we have the right CEOs in place? Any thoughts on that? We throw that back into Matt's lap, you think?
Do you think we could at least identify the athlete leaders from this call who can be on there, and then Matt only has the lift of identifying the CEOs?
Okay. That being said, athlete leaders, can I have a volunteer to help lead the discussion on those 3 topics? So hiring athletes for staff positions. Can I have an athlete volunteer on that one?
I'll take that one.
All right, Bruce, you're number 1.
Yep.
How can ALCs help inform decision-making before a decision is made rather than just offering feedback after it is implemented? Can I have an athlete leader who would volunteer to help lead that discussion?
Denny, I can take that one because we try to do that in here already. So
Lisa, thank you very much.
I don't know if Lisa would be included on that call. I mean, we can include her, but this was just for the CEOs and the USALC, correct?
Well, I think the call is open to anybody on this committee as well.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Yep. And then number 3, identifying meaningful athlete leadership roles in each state. Jordan, are you on mute?
Yeah, and yeah, certainly if I can that is one of the areas I would be willing to do.
Thanks, Jordan.
So, yeah, definitely.
Thank you. Well, we have the athletes in place. Do any of the CEOs on the call have an interest in leading that discussion? And before we throw it back to Matt.
Denny, I'm happy to help wherever, but I don't think by any way, shape, or form, I'm happy to facilitate, but I certainly am not an expert in any of these 3 areas. So I can help wherever.
All right, Karen, if you could put me down as hiring athletes for staff positions, I can pretty much talk about that.
But I don't know if I want to work with Denny.
What's that, Bruce? What did he say?
I said, I
He
don't
said
know.
he looks forward to working with such an esteemed colleague as yourself. That's what I heard.
All right, Bruce, we're gonna have a talk, you and I. And if no other CEO is comfortable with being a moderator for 2 or 3, we'll throw that back to Matt. I don't want anyone not to jump in unless they're absolutely comfortable. And if you're not, I understand that. We'll throw that back to Matt on number 2 and 3.
Danny, I'd be happy to help with number 2.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you very much.
I can take notes in one of the sessions. I'm happy to help. I just don't feel like I'm an expert. Again, facilitating, you don't have to be an expert, right? It's just facilitating it.
You're just trying to get the discussion rolling a little bit.
Yep.
And you know, your athletes, I think, are going to take the lead on most of this stuff.
Yes.
So, all right, if you don't feel comfortable, Jess, that's okay. We'll find somebody for number 3.
I would suggest maybe Matt and Jordan working together for number 3.
Yeah, you know something, Matt's not on the call and he stuck it to me a few times when I wasn't on the call. So why don't we put Matt Aaron as being the facilitator on number 3? Excellent idea. Excellent. I love it. All right, can you go back up, Karen, to where we were? After the breakout groups, I think it's something about reporting out next steps.
Denny, I'm so sorry. Do we need to designate a note taker in each of those 3 breakout sessions?
Yeah, I think we do, but you know, if not, I think that the CEO can do the note taking just to make it a little bit more simpler and report back out with the athlete leader.
Okay.
If you go back up, Karen, to number 4. Report out and next steps. Facilitator from each breakout group provides a quick 1 or 2 minute summary of discussion and outcomes. And then the next step, we ask CEOs in each USL region to invite their regional athlete rep to an upcoming regional CEO meeting or have the CEOs join the quarterly call hosted by the regional athlete rep to discuss several other topics of interest we didn't cover on the USLC CEO call. So I know for a fact that in our region, in the New England region, we're very, very active and we talk as a group every other week. I'm not sure how active other regions are throughout the country, whether CEOs get together and have these discussions.
Yeah, I can say for the Mid-Atlantic that unless Matt has gone on above me to have someone participate on CEO calls, I don't think we've done that previously.
Okay. So maybe what we would like to do, Bruce, I'm going to get you involved in this one. I'm going to ask you to contact the regional reps to set up a meeting within their region with the region CEOs. So let's put the onus on the athlete rep in the specific regions to call a meeting of the CEOs.
Yeah, that's a good idea because that's what we were going to do anyway, to talk about the workshop. So yeah, they will already have that task.
All right, great.
Yeah.
I have a question. What about an at-large member? Like, should they be on with the regional rep as to back them up, or is it just for the region rep?
My thinking on that is if there is an area, if there is a at-large member who's within that region, that they should be on that regional call as well. Or if there is a regional rep out there who might need assistance from an at-large member, they should be reaching out to an at-large member to see if they're available for a call. So Mary Ellen, you might be asked to sit in on, the Northwest call if that regional rep thinks that they need assistance along the way. I'm assuming you're an at-large member
Yes, for New England, like New England.
in New England, but you're an at-large member nationwide, am I correct?
As far as I know, yes. Bruce, can you just confirm that?
Yeah, we have at-large members within their regions, and we have regional representatives representing each region. But Northwest is a good example because their regional representative is literally brand new. So he might need some help facilitating that meeting with the Northwest CEOs. So that's where myself as the chair of the USALC, or maybe like another at-large member, might step in and be on that call.
Great, and I think any of our regional reps would be willing to assist in another region if they have time to make that happen. I think that just makes sense. Karen, thank you very, very much for this note taking. Outstanding. Okay, to-do list. Again, we talked about number 1, we talked about number 2. Number 3 on that to-do list, we need to come up with key questions or conversation starters in advance. And I think it's incumbent on, I know I'll work with Bruce, and Bruce and I will sit and have a conversation before the 17th as to what we think would be a good conversation starter. Can I ask the other facilitators, athlete and CEOs to get together to just the brainstorm and put together a list of things that they may want to discuss and have ready to go for those breakout sessions? I think to Jessica's point, you don't want to get into this session and not be prepared and have silence and not know where to go with this. So I think it's a good idea for the athlete leaders and the CEOs to just get together for a 10-15 minute conversation ahead of the 17th to discuss the strategy behind the breakout sessions.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Okay. Anything else under the to-do list for preparation? Does anyone see anything else we need to add to the to-do list? Okay, then
Nope.
let's go on to the next steps, regional meetings. Here are the possible topics that are suggested on the joint USALC/US Unified Leadership Committee planning call on August 2nd. Raymond, starting state ALCs. How do athletes provide input in their state programmatic offerings? Example, offered with desire to start 3-on-3 basketball. Mary Ellen, improving communication between each state ALC and the rest of their state, improving communication among state leaders within each USLC region. Nathan, improving email communications and follow-up. Hard to get responses sometimes, especially when athlete leaders don't know each other. And then who will follow up with each region to ensure that either the CEOs invite their regional athlete rep to one of their meetings, or they are invited to join a quarterly call hosted by their rep. Bruce, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I was just gonna say those topics from Raymond, Mary Ellen, and Nathan, those were for the regional meetings that we just talked about, the regional representative making with the CEOs. Those are for those meetings. And also, I just have one concern about having a meeting before the call on the 17th. Is that's only a week away. That is my only concern with that. But if people can find time in the next 3 or 4 days to meet, that's fine. But that's the only hesitation that I have.
Well, I know Jeff has already made contact with Lisa about a meeting, and Bruce, when we get off this call, you and I can set up. And again, it's only, 10 or 15 minutes, how we're going to start the session. And I think once we get it started, it's going to flow pretty good. So Bruce, you and I, and then Matt's going to have to work with Jordan, and obviously they're from the same state, so I'm sure they can get together and have that discussion. But
Okay.
Bruce, if you can send me an email with some available times and dates that you have, so we can get the ball rolling on hiring, that'd be great.
Okay, sounds good.
So again, Bruce, I may have missed a little bit of what you were saying regarding the next step on regional meetings. Is that a discussion for today?
Those are questions for the regional meetings that the regional representatives will be having with the CEO. Those are for the regional meeting, not for
Okay.
today, no.
Okay.
I have a question. Could that be addressed somehow on Tuesday with, we want to have regional meetings. Here are some topics that we would like to talk about. So that way they know in advance, if, and then they can work out their meeting dates with their representatives. So that way the topics are out there in advance.
I agree, Mary Ellen. I think that maybe we should find some time in the agenda on the 17th, maybe with Matt's introduction, to talk about some of these topics, and not to dive into them, but just let the CEOs know that these are some things that are on the minds of our athlete leadership, in that our athletes need to be, our CEOs need to be prepared that these issues are extremely important to our athlete leadership, and they need to be aware of some of the priorities that are on the minds of our athlete leaders.
Yeah, and even like to state, we don't have time to cover everything athletes want to hear, but here are some ideas for future regional meetings or something like that.
Yeah. I'm very, very concerned, especially after David Wu's email, which is very well thought out, by the way, by David, whether we're going to have enough time at the end of our presentations when we bring people back together again, if people are going to have a lot of questions. And if they have a lot of questions, how do we integrate that into the format? It seems like we have an awful lot that we want to say in a very short time period. But if David has those concerns, there may be some, I think, newer CEOs out there who really want to get a little bit more extensive information about athlete leadership, and how are we going to handle that? Bruce, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I think that could be a discussion topic for the regional meeting, with the regional representative, with the CEOs in their region. I think that could be part of that discussion.
Okay.
If we don't have time for it during the all CEO USALC meeting.
I'm just wondering, Bruce, if you have a captive audience of, I don't know, 30, 35 CEOs, is it better to just set aside 5 minutes to, get some major questions asked, so that we're all on the same page going forward with the amount of information we want to provide people.
Yeah, I agree. If it's 5 minutes, then I wouldn't have a problem with that. But if it extends to like 10 or 15,
You're going to lose people.
yeah.
You're going to lose people. I agree with that.
And Denny, I was wondering too, if we had, maybe have like maybe the top three, top three questions if we have time, I mean, because everybody's probably gonna have a bunch of questions, but maybe either the top three or even maybe 2 questions that everybody's agreeing to, answer on the call. And then all the rest can be addressed on the regional call.
Okay, so what we're going to do is maybe somehow, Karen, within the agenda, if you can find a spot for it, to ask CEOs who might have questions, to ask those questions in the chat room. And if we have time at the end of the call, we will address as many of those questions in the chat room, but then refer all other questions to our regional calls that are upcoming. Does that make sense? Thank you. Great. Thanks, Karen. Does anybody else have anything else they want to add to the agenda or any comments going forward? I know it looks like it's going to be extremely busy, and I wish we had time for one more preparation session, but I think it'll go very, very well. And I'm confident that with the leadership we have on this call, that the August 17th call will be extremely successful and provoke an awful lot of discussion with our CEOs. So thank you all. Anybody else want to add anything?
Denny, I'll reach out to you right after this to set up our meeting.
Thank you, Bruce. Anybody else have any comments? Well, it's about time I go back and ice my knee. So thank you all. I really appreciate all your help and all the work that you're doing. And I know that August 17th is going to be a major success. Karen, could I ask you to please send out the amended agenda to everyone on the committee? And then if Matt would like to discuss it further with me, I'm always available, to discuss it going forward.
I'll also share the recording of this meeting
Okay.
if he wants to review.
Great. Great. Anybody else before we close out the meeting? Comments, concerns? Great. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day today. Great weekend, and we'll see everybody on the 17th.
Thanks, Jerry.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.